This is TWiT.
For those of you who watch many of our shows here on TWiT, you may be familiar with a company or two that I'm going to mention today called Suno and Udio. Because we have featured both of these websites and services on our shows at times, showing off the ability of AI to generate music and in some cases music. Unfortunately, when it comes to that, there have been some discoveries, maybe by US record labels, who are accusing Suno and Udio of copyright infringement. Joining us to kind of dig into this and help us understand what's going on here is senior writer at Wired, Kate Knibbs. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you join us. So, yeah, I've got some questions here for you, and I was hoping that you could start by explaining how AI music generators like Suno and Udio actually work, and then what specific practices therein seem to have led to the copyright infringement claims.
Absolutely. So Suno and Udio both work in similar ways. They allow users, you just type in a prompt, you could say, sing me a jazzy song about the 1996 Bulls, or, give me a Christmas song that sounds like seagulls are chirping it or something. You can do anything that you want. And these tools will produce a shockingly polished tune for you with lyrics if you want them and music. And they've really taken off since they debuted just because they're very simple for people to use. You just type whatever comes to mind and you have a song within a matter of minutes, and there's sort of a magical quality to them. And the way that they work is similar to the way that other generative AI tools work, like text or image generators. They're trained on vast amounts of data and basically taught to predict or estimate what the most appropriate thing to create would be based on prompts. We don't know exactly what they were trained on. They've been a little vague when they're talking about their training data. And so there have been lots of suspicions circling these companies basically since they debuted that they had been trained on a vast trove of copyrighted songs. And now we have the record labels accusing them of being trained on vast troves of copyrighted songs.
Yeah, in fact, that's kind of what I hope you can kind of tell us about is, especially because there's a lot of legalese involved always. What are the main allegations that have been made by these music labels against Suno and Udio in these copyright infringement lawsuits? Because it's from the sort of macro perspective, it is not as if these Suno and Udio places are putting out music into, Apple Music and Spotify and making money off of them that way, and sort of making the new Justin Bieber hit, but instead are seemingly being used to make random music about seagulls chirping Christmas tunes. So what are the music labels saying when it comes to the copyright infringement?
So the music labels are making similar claims against both Suno and Udio, as you mentioned. They are worried that, there might not be that many hits on the radio right now that are using these tools, but they're assuming that they will be using them in the future. We've already seen a track called BBL Drizzy that was made using Udio. And, they're seeing this and they're looking 5 years down the road, and they're assuming that these tools will be used to create some of the next pop hits. So they filed these two lawsuits. They are both alleging copyright infringement. And they are, interestingly, the crux of these lawsuits is that the labels are alleging that training the tools was infringing. The lawsuits provide a lot of different examples that they're using as evidence where they've managed to prompt the music generators to make a song that sounds like another song. So for instance, in the Suno lawsuit, they talk about how they prompted Suno to make a song that was suspiciously similar to Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good. And they even showed you the lyrics and the musical notes as evidence. But they're not actually trying to prove in court that that and other examples were infringing. The lawsuits mainly are focused on just the concept of training as infringing, which is a bold move, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that is kind of, I mean, that is the larger conversation that seems to be taking place across all of this. It's a conversation that comes up on a lot of our shows as we talk about AI, and we talk about the right to read, which is this idea that, you know, we as humans have the right to go online and look at a New York Times piece. And so does an AI system have the right to go online and look at a New York Times piece and then, you know, absorb that information and spit it back out? Because I could go read that article and then I could go and talk to my friend about it and I am spitting it out. So how is that different from what the AI is doing? Same thing here. It's almost like the right to listen. If I can listen to a song and then sing it back out loud, is, you know, me taking that in when I'm sort of training myself, so to speak. Is that different from an AI system doing the same? And there's a lot of confusion here. I said I wasn't going to ask you kind of off-topic questions, but it's on topic. But you said something, BBL something. So can you tell? I didn't know that there was this. I didn't know. I had heard a little bit about this, but for our listeners, is this a song that is popular like on TikTok? Like where was the song cropping up that it suddenly gotten some attention?
Okay, I'm going to explain the song, but you have to remember that I'm a 37-year-old mom in the Midwest, so I don't have my finger on the pulse of youth culture. So forgive me. I know that it's really popular on TikTok, but you can listen to it on Spotify. It was made by a comedian. I think his name is King Melonius, but people can fact check me. It really took off when Metro Boomin, the producer, remixed it. And yeah, people are like listening. People love this song. And it is, I don't know if the name will clue listeners in, but it's a diss track about Drake. And it's sort of leaning into the popularity of diss tracks about Drake, you know, because of like Not Like Us and all the Kendrick Lamar stuff. It's sort of building upon that. But yeah, it's like totally made with Udio.
First of all, I want to say you did a fantastic job explaining that. So that was wonderful. And yeah, folks can find that track also available on Apple Music. I love that the genre of it is definitely comedy. Now, here is a question that I have that I think folks will be kind of curious about, because we see companies respond in different ways to these allegations. How have Suno and Udio responded to the allegations, and what defenses have they put forward regarding the use of copyrighted material? And have they released any diss tracks against the recording industry themselves?
No diss tracks yet, although I wouldn't rule those out. So far, Suno and Udio have both put out statements strongly defending themselves against the allegations. What you were talking about a moment ago about the right to read, I think we're going to see that come up in court if these cases do go to trial, because what this type of Gen AI startup, their typical defense, and I think we're going to see this defense here, is that they're not going to deny, I think, in court that they did indeed train on songs that are still in copyright. They're going to argue that it's fair use. And the fair use doctrine in U.S. Courts allows copyright infringement in certain cases, like parody, or newspapers are allowed to quote books and speeches and other sources. And there's lots of arguments that have been made by tech companies that it means computers are allowed to read and learn from copyrighted material. So the statements were both pretty brief, but I think they're heavily hinting that both companies are going to be using the fair use defense in the courtroom.
Understood. Now that has me kind of wondering, what do we think the broader implications are for the AI industry? Do we think that this has the potential to be a precedent-setting lawsuit, given that, as you said, it's likely that the right to read will be brought up in court?
So one thing that's really important to remember when we're looking and talking about these lawsuits is that they are not pioneering. There are so many lawsuits that are already ongoing against AI companies that I think the precedent will be set before these end up going to trial. Last year, the music labels jumped into the fray. UMG, Universal Music Group, sued Anthropic, arguing that the Anthropic was producing lyrics that were in copyright. These lawsuits are breaking new ground because they are the first lawsuits that are against music generators specifically, and music generators that make lyrical compositions, but they're not that different. Like the copyright claims aren't that distinct from the copyright claims that are made in the like dozens of lawsuits that have already been filed against AI companies that have text generation tools. Like the biggest case is probably New York Times versus OpenAI. That also wasn't the first, but I think it's considered by copyright experts to be the one that I think has the strongest argument. Like it will be the toughest battle. So I'm rambling at you a little bit, but I'm trying to say that the precedent will likely already be set by the time these go to trial, if they go to trial. If they are settled, I have suspicions that the negotiations will hinge on what sort of precedents are set by the cases that were filed a year or two ago.
The other question I have is, do we think that this will have any impact on the way that the music industry itself makes use of AI in music production? Because we've got this new craze, which is generative AI, but for a long time, there have been a number of tools that are a form of artificial intelligence to clean up audio tracks, to change pitches, to add reverb in a way that makes it seem like it's coming from an actual, hardware device. There are all of these tools that are there that do use artificial intelligence in some way and have, in effect, been trained in some way to be able to produce the effects that they are trying to produce. Could this have any impact on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could definitely have a chilling effect on producers who are typically keen to try new tools that involve AI in some way. I think the fact that the labels are demonstrating that they're going to be litigious when it comes to generative AI will probably make at least a few people think twice before they're introducing AI into their production schedule. And that's honestly kind of a shame, because I think there could certainly be really cool things done with AI. Although I also think that, artists who oppose their work being trained upon without their permission have an ethical point, if not the legal right. So yeah, I do think it's probably going to make some producers a little gun shy when it comes to using new AI tools.
Yeah, absolutely. Kate, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to help us understand what's going on with Suno, Udio, and the record labels. Obviously, this is going to be an ongoing thing. We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. And I appreciate you also taking the time to tell us about the diss track that I'm looking forward to listening to after the show. Of course, folks can head to wired.com to check out your work, where you are a senior writer. Is there anywhere else they can go to follow along with what you do?
They can look me up on Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I'm still there. It's It's just my last name, Knibbs. And I'm on Threads at Extreme Knibbs. I just have a really stupid username. But thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this stuff. Maybe if the Gen AI companies don't get sued out of existence, you'll be talking to a robot version of me next time.
Thank you, and enjoy the show later today. I think this sounds like a lot of fun. We appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching this little chunk of Tech News Weekly. If you'd like to get the full episode, well, head over to twit.tv/TNW. There you'll find buttons you can click or tap to subscribe to the entire show in audio and video formats. Or just look in the description. We've got links down there as well.